A shocking win, we'll call it. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has made a shockingly excellent move for a traditionally establishment Democrat. She's proposing measures that would limit giant investors like hedge funds, private equity firms too, from buying up swaths of single family homes, a practice that's contributed to the housing crisis across the country. Before we get into the details, though, Cenk, your initial thoughts here. I love it, but I wonder if it's too little, too late. I mean, there's American cities all across the land that are just pigeonholed because of this.
No, I'm shocked by this development, but I believe in giving credit where credit is due. So I can't believe she's doing this, and it's definitely a positive development. So, but let's hear out the details and see if it matches.
So here are the details in her proposal. The governor wants to prevent institutional investors from bidding on properties in the first 75 days. And that can be important because, they do scoop them up quickly. The first 75 days that they're on the market, her plan would also remove certain tax benefits, such as interest deductions when the homes are purchased. New York Times with the reporting here. She said in her statement announcing the plan today, the cost of living is just too damn high, especially when it comes to the sky-high rents and mortgages New Yorkers pay every month. Shadowy private equity giants are buying up the housing supply in communities across New York, leaving everyday home buyers with fewer and fewer affordable options. In her office's announcement, they explain why private equity has contributed to the housing crisis. These large entities can often outbid prospective homeowners with all cash offers, fast track their ownership by waiving inspections, appraisals, and other common prerequisites that traditional home buyers cannot afford to give up. They push rents higher, charge fees, often neglect their tenants, and they're just getting started. Institutions own 700,000 single-family rentals, about 5% of the national stock, according to a research paper from MetLife Investment Management. By 2030, MetLife estimates they will possess rather 40% of single-family residences, roughly 7.6 million homes. Exact numbers in New York specifically, they're not clear, but local officials in some upstate cities say investors are buying up dozens of homes at a time, turning them into rentals. Investment firms have bought buildings in places like Brooklyn and Queens from families and smaller landlords. Now, Hochul's move is particularly surprising because the real estate industry has backed Hochul's campaigns, according to a Sledge report from April 2024. Since January 1, 2023, donors in the real estate industry, counting a selection of executives, employees, companies, and PACs, have given Hochul's campaign at least $1.5 million. And naturally, they are not happy about this move. James Whelan, president of the Real Estate Board of New York, said his team would review the proposal, but characterized it as another example of policy that will stifle investment in housing in New York. So the likely suspects don't like this. It is a bold move for the governor of New York. What say you, Cenk, about what she's doing here and why?
Yeah, so governor's race is coming up, and she's in a lot of trouble, and her poll numbers are bad. And now they're not only worried about a primary, they're worried about losing the general election to a Republican in New York. And Trump did way better than expected in New York. That's the underlying reason, but I'll take it. And so it's a good policy, and it draws attention to this problem. So even if it doesn't pass, it has that win. And we've talked about this problem a lot. In fact, it's part of our populist plank on tyt.com. Please go sign that. We'll put a link down below as well if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook. And what it is that eventually, because our homes are the greatest wealth creation asset that we have as Americans, and it is what has built up the middle class into having the wealth that it does, and America into having the wealth that it does, the bankers logically figured out, wait, why are we letting the average American buy the homes and create wealth? Why don't we take the homes from them, but pay maybe a little bit more, but then we'll turn them all into renters, and we'll create wealth for ourselves instead of letting the American people do it. So this is a gigantic problem. And so it's a very populist thing for her to do to try to drive her numbers up. Now, of course, the number one thing, guys, is she actually going to do it? Can she actually pass the bill? And New York is controlled by Democrats. So if she really wants it, show us what you got. Pass the bill. And if you pass the bill, then you should get a lot of credit for it. And if you don't pass the bill, were you really trying, or was this just a campaign trick?
I can't see how it passes, considering the real estate industry and these equity funds, and a lot of them with their base in New York. But who knows? Maybe it's gone far enough. The pendulum has swung in that direction, and it'll actually happen. But I think it's a desperation move. But I agree with you, Jen. Give her credit, and hopefully there will be other leaders and jurisdictions across the country. I mean, here in Atlanta, where I am, it's a huge issue. It's huge. And it just seems like a Band-Aid's being put on it, but there's just not enough housing to go around, affordable housing for people in Georgia and beyond.
Yeah. So last thing I'll say on it is, look, I'll give you context so you know how much credit to give her or not give her. Right. Number one, credit for proposing it. Number two, credit for bringing a spotlight to the issue. Number three, credit for having the correct political strategy, whether she means it or not, because at a minimum, I tell Democrats, why don't you try to win elections? So instead of telling people how much you love your corporate donors, why don't you do something that's populist and actually popular, right? So she had enough savvy to do that. So I'll give her credit for strategy on that. But I want you to understand all that credit is like 10 to 15%. The real credit is in actually passing the bill. So if she doesn't pass this bill, or she doesn't really try, which is like the oldest corporate Democrat trick in the book, then we'll come back and give her extra discredit for being a liar about it, right? So fair is fair.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.